Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Curtis, and I'm going to be the guest speaker today. And I heard that it's a custom to kind of like first start by stretching. So could we all, if you're into it, you can stand up. We do a little stretch, like do one of these, one of these. So while you're up, we're stuck with each other for like an hour, you and I. So we can make this more pleasant for all, but the more energy you're giving back to me, the more I can give back to you, and we can have some fun. So are you out there? Okay, all right. Please, all right. Thank you. You may be seated. So, I told them I wouldn't pace so much. Okay. I just want to let you know what's going to happen today. Basically, I'm going to stand up here and I'm going to assert unbelievable things to you. We're going to talk about life after death and spirits and God, and I'm going to stand here and tell you about it like I know about it. And I just want to explain why. This is not because I was sitting in my office and just like, oh man, yeah, that's got to be how it is. This is all based on the recorded spiritual experiences of Emanuel Swedenborg. So I think we got to start by introducing you to who is Swedenborg and what is this phenomenon. So I worked out this thing with the booth where I tell them to play a video and they play it. So we're going to do that. Can we play the first video? Oh, it's not on yet. Can we play the first video?
I'm Jonathan Rose, series editor of the New Century edition of the works of Emanuel Swedenborg. So maybe you've heard or read something interesting about this Emanuel Swedenborg, and you want to know more. Well, perhaps... Hi, I'm Jonathan Rose, series editor of the New Century edition of the works of Emanuel Swedenborg. So maybe you've heard or read something interesting about this Emanuel Swedenborg, and you want to know more. Well, perhaps the most basic thing you should know, just for purposes of light conversation, is that Swedenborg was an 18th century Swedish scientist, philosopher, and theologian. Born 1688, died 1772. The next thing you should probably know is that he was brilliant. He was what people call a universal genius, a polymath, a Renaissance man, ahead of his time. For instance, he was a submarine designer before there was such a thing, a psychologist 140 years before Freud, an aeronautical engineer 190 years before the Wright brothers. He was a mathematician, geologist, metallurgist, mineralogist, crystallographer, anatomist, botanist, chemist, physicist, cosmologist, astronomer. I'm not making this up, this is very well documented. He was an author, inventor, legislator, mining engineer, economist, editor, a poet, and a musician. He came up with the first rational design for flight and made anatomical discoveries that were well ahead of their time. He published 14,000 pages and left another 28,000 pages in manuscript. So he was one of those types. But perhaps the most important but also controversial thing about him was that he claimed that in his mid-50s he had a spiritual awakening that opened the afterlife to him while he was still alive in this world. He was not just alive, but functioning with indefatigable energy. You could think of him as having a near-death experience that went on for 29 years while he was living his daily life, seeing friends, participating in the Swedish government, and writing more books.
So that's a little bit about who Swedenborg is. I wanted to say hello to our online audience too. I forgot that we're streaming, so I hope you guys are doing well. Swedenborg was cool because he's kind of a convergence of near-death. Have you guys all heard near-death experience? Do you know that term? Raymond Moody wrote a book a couple decades ago. It was called Life After Life. He was a medical doctor, and he first started, patients all the time would tell him these stories. Like, I went through a tunnel. You guys have probably heard that. I saw people I'd known who had died. I experienced all this love. And he was the first one to really start writing those down and categorizing them, and he coined the term near-death experience. Well, in that first book, Life After Life, he had a segment on historical parallels. Like, this is where I've come across things from the past that match with this modern near-death experience phenomenon. And there were 3 things in that section, and one of them was Swedenborg. So Swedenborg, because of Swedenborg's similarity to all these different accounts, like they were looking at the same thing. But not only that, Swedenborg is categorically unique because of the duration of his experiences. You know, people will have a near-death experience and they'll say, man, that was just like, it was 20 years ago, but it feels like it was yesterday. I can still remember it. So, and Swedenborg would say, that was 20 years ago, and it's still happening. Like, he had a 27-year period where he could visit the afterlife and lucidly. He could choose, I want to go here, I want to talk to these people. So it was a whole different phenomenon, and he came away writing not one book, but 25 books packed with details. And we're going to try to go into some of that today. So central to Swedenborg's worldview is this idea that there are two worlds. There's a physical world, which is where we're in the physical world. That's where the Mitchell Performing Arts Center is. And then there's the spiritual world. And that we actually are citizens of both worlds because we have a body and a spirit. And that's a lot of you have probably heard that before, right? But probably none of you have ever done this. We're actually going to do an exercise where we send a message to our spirits, okay? Okay, work with me. So everybody take the palm of your left hand and have it facing up towards the ceiling. And breathe in deeply. Take your pointer finger and press it firmly into your palm. There. Okay, so can you feel your finger in your palm? Yes. Okay, we did it. Message received. The conscious part of you is your spirit. We just sent a physical message to the spirit. Like there's a physical finger touching palm, electrical impulses sent to the brain, but the part of you that experienced it, that's your spirit. Swedenborg put it, our mind is our spirit. And the spirit is a person, with the body being a covering through which the mind or spirit senses and acts in the world. So we're plugged into this. You're hearing, my mouth is making sound waves going through this amplification system. They're bouncing around in your ear canal, all physically. But the part of you that's like, oh, I hear it. This is experiencing it. Oh, this is already sort of boring. That's your spirit. So we have extensive experience because we actually have extensive experience with both worlds, even if we wouldn't think we would, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So what is dying then? Dying is going from being primarily physical, like we are now, to being primarily spiritual. The casting off of the physical body, and the coming into your spiritual senses. Swedenborg wrote, we have eyes, you have spiritual eyes too, but they're closed right now because you're busy looking through your physical eyes. So he describes the process actually of dying. He was, like a lot of near-death experiences, their life is in danger, and this is why they have the experience. But Swedenborg was able to experience what dying is without having his life threatened, just to be shown. And he wrote it down, and I just wanted to read you a little paragraph here of Swedenborg's experience of what it's like to die, and what it would be like for us. I was brought into a state in which my physical senses were inoperative. Very much then like the state of people who are dying. However, my deeper life and thought remained intact, so that I could perceive and retain what was happening to me and what does happen to people who are being awakened from death. I noticed that my physical breathing was almost suspended, with a deeper breathing, a breathing of the spirit, continuing along and with a very slight and silent physical one. At first then a connection was established between my heartbeat and the heavenly kingdom, because the kingdom corresponds to the human heart. I also saw angels from that kingdom, some at a distance, but two were sitting close to my head. I noticed that at first the angels were checking to see whether my thoughts were like those of dying individuals who are normally thinking about eternal life. I think I would be. I was unable to perceive and even to feel that there was a pull, a kind of drawing out of the deeper levels of my mind and therefore of my spirit from my body. I was told that this was being done by the Lord, and it is what brings about our resurrection. Angels take the greatest care to shield the awakening person from any concept that does not taste of love, as he puts it. They then tell the individual that he or she is a spirit. They do everything for us as newly arrived spirits that we could ever wish in that state. They're very good hosts. They tell us, at least to the extent that we can grasp it, about the realities of the other life. So, but what are the realities of the other life? What's it like? What's it like to be dead? Well, I think the first thing you might notice is that actually things are more realistic there than they are here, if that makes sense. You kind of think of like the spiritual world is kind of like floofy and airy and hippie, but actually he says that it's more tangible. It's more solid. Your senses are sharper. Your sight is sharper. You can hear better. You feel better. No, you can feel more sensitively, and you also feel better. Anyway, people who have had a near-death experience, I heard one describe it as coming back here, and this is like a comic book. Or like, I can't believe that I really thought that was real. So it's actually more solid and more tangible. But after you got over the similarities, I think you would be surprised, the differences, you'd be surprised by how similar it was. I mean, there are buildings there. There are houses. There are roads and trees. It looks a lot like it does here. And Swedenborg gives all kinds of detail about it. And I want to share a quick piece with you, just a little experience he had of walking through a landscape there. So can we roll video number 2, please?
Once I had a conversation with 2 angels, one of whom came from a heaven in the east and the other from a heaven in the south. When these angels realized that I was meditating on secrets of wisdom having to do with love, they said, "Are you not aware of the wisdom games that take place in our world?" "Not yet," I said. "There are lots of them," they said. They explained that spirits who love truth in a spiritual way gather together on receiving a sign. These spirits then debate issues that require deep understanding, and they draw conclusions. The angels took me by the hand, saying to me, "Come with us, and you will see and hear." We received the sign that a gathering is happening today. They led me across a large flat area of land to a hill. I was surprised to see here a covered walkway or colonnade formed entirely of living palm trees. It began at the bottom of the hill and continued to the top. We went into it and made our way up the hill. At the hill's highest point, a stand of trees came into view. Within this stand of trees, earth had been built up in such a way as to form an arena. In the arena, there was a level area paved with pebbles of different colors. Around the paved part on all 4 sides, there were chairs set up on which the lovers of wisdom were sitting. At the center of the whole arena, there was a table. On it lay a document sealed with a signet ring.
But what's in the document? Well, I don't have time to go into it here. In the recording of that experience, he goes into it in detail, and there's this whole huge conversation, and you see who knows what about what. We just don't have the time. Swedenborg is so fascinating like that. It just goes into extreme detail about all kinds of facets of the afterlife, and so I would recommend the book. Let's move on. So I've kind of been jerking you back and forth. I've been saying, oh yeah, the afterlife is really different than here. Oh, it's really similar. Well, let's go back to how different it is. Because while it appears the same, he's talking about palm trees and walkways. These are things we understand. There are some fundamental differences about the spiritual world on the basic levels. So I'm talking about time and space. That those actually, time and space, operate differently in the spiritual world than they do here. And you guys already know how they operate in the spiritual world because we are both, right? We have a spirit and a body. And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. Space in the spiritual world. Okay, so how does that work? Let's say somebody came up to me and said, Curtis, how close are you to your father? And I said, man, I mean, when we were little, but we had some conversations when I was growing up, and I would really say at this point, about 600 miles apart. Like 620 if you take Route 80 up there. It doesn't make any sense, right? You talk about how close to someone you are, how much do you love them? How much do they love you? Think about, you would never say, he seems so distant. He was in China. He seemed that distant, right? It doesn't make any sense. Can't you feel closer to somebody who lives across the country than you do to your neighbors, right? That is because that's how distance works for the spirit. And in the spiritual world, that literally sets up the distance. So if you are in harmony with somebody, they are closer to you. You want to see someone, they come closer to you. You don't want to see them, they're farther away. Nice setup, right? That's what sets up communities. People that think alike and work well together naturally gravitate closer to each other, whereas those who are discordant push each other farther away. And he goes into incredible detail about that. Time is the other one. Swedenborg says that time there is not fixed like it is here. Like here, there's an hour and a clock is measuring it, and it's always the same. But it's not fixed in the other life, and we actually already know that because of our experience as spiritual beings in a physical body. Is every hour the same length? Think about, what about an hour where you're with some of your best friends, or you're doing something, you got some kind of project you really enjoy doing, you lose track of time. How long is that hour as compared to the hour where you are passing a kidney stone, maybe? Or let's say you're waiting to hear, how did the surgery go for my best friend? These are drastically different amounts of time, yet physically it's all the same. So time is not fixed there. Things that you enjoy and things you dread, these create the length of experiences. And the way I see it, he talks about not fixed time. Think about you're on the beach and you're having a lot of fun. It's like you had to drive an hour and a half to get to the beach, and you're loving it. You just want to stay there, but you're, oh, it's 3:30, I got to get back, in time to, you weren't ready to leave the beach, but time says it's time to go. In the spiritual world, you're ready to leave the beach when you're ready to leave the beach. Does that make sense? And you think about, we're going to try to put together a family vacation, second week of August, oh, but that's when I have this kind of camp. But there, you get your stuff done, you all show up. It's the same time. So it's time and space in the spiritual world. And that space thing that I was talking about, it creates these divisions. We've heard the terms heaven and hell. And actually, Swedenborg's best-selling book he ever wrote, most popular book, I guess a lot of them were given away, was called Heaven and Hell. So I want to talk about those and give me the good news or the bad news. Bad news first. Okay, so let's talk about hell. What does that mean? So there's a segment of the population that doesn't think that consciousness survives death at all. We're biological machines, and when the machine breaks, that your consciousness was an emergent property from the different processes, and so that's wiped out too. There are other people that think, consciousness survives death, but of those that survive death, there are a lot less that believe in something called hell. Because that's not a very hip concept. It's like sadness and punishment and all this stuff. Like that's not fun, and it doesn't seem good, right? Swedenborg does say, in his spiritual experiences, he says he runs into hell all the time. But there are some crucial differences between Swedenborg's idea of hell and what I would call the mainstream or common concept of hell. The mainstream concept of hell, right, is kind of like, don't be bad or else God is going to send you to hell, right? That's pretty fair? Swedenborg's, you could probably put it better, nobody can be denied the right to go to hell if they want to. And you are only going to be in hell if you'd be happier there than you would be in heaven. So that may sound a little counterintuitive, but you don't have to take my word for it. Let's hear from some spokespeople for it. Can we roll video number 3?
Forgive me for adding the following to fill out the rest of the page. By special permission, some spirits came up from hell and said to me, "You've written a great deal that the Lord has given you. Write something from us as well." I answered, "What should I write?" They said, "Write that every spirit, whether good or evil, has his or her own delight, a delight in goodness for the good, and a delight in evil for the evil." I asked, "What's your delight?" They said that it was a delight in adultery, theft, fraud, and lying. I said, "And do you find them pleasant?" They said that they were absolutely delightful. I said, "What else do you want me to write?" They said, "Write this, that we are allowed to live in our own delights, no matter how filthy they are, as some would say, as long as we do not harass good spirits and angels. But since we cannot help harassing them, we're driven off and cast into hell." I said, "Why do you harass good people?" They answered that they couldn't help it. It was as though a rage came over them when they saw angels and sensed the divine aura around them. I said, "This makes you like wild animals." When they heard this, a rage came over them that looked like blazing hatred, and to prevent them from doing any harm, they were taken back into hell.
So hopefully that wasn't too creepy for you guys. Did you notice at the beginning he's like, "Forgive me for writing this," to fill out the rest of the page? I think that's funny. That's really how it appears in his book. So when he talks about spirits, everybody in heaven and everybody in hell was a person at one point. So it's not that there are specially created bad guys or good guys. So Swedenborg is claiming that he just talked to people who are in hell, and I want to think a little bit about what was their attitude. I mean, were they saying, "This is horrible here, please stop punishing us. We're sorry. We're sorry." Like, they're talking about, they're basically pitching it, aren't they? They're like, "Hey, don't be a square, man. Come down here. Like, this is what's happening." It's all about, they're focusing on the pleasure that they get down there. And that's That's kind of what drives all of heaven or hell, is the different things you take joy in. Swedenborg wrote, when the pleasure of evil is felt as good, that is hell. So is that accurate? I mean, that is certainly what causes a lot of hell on this earth, wouldn't you say? People who, the pleasure of acquiring, tons and tons of wealth, that people are willing to do things. You ever watch like American Greed? Anyway, these shows about these people who already start all these criminal enterprises, even though they're already, because they have this pleasure in getting more and more. Or power, people who want power so much that they cause all these dictators, all kinds of untold suffering for the pursuit of that pleasure of evil. And it doesn't have to be dramatic, it's the same. I mean, what about like the pleasure of being right or getting the last word in? I mean, it's all about what Swedenborg calls the pleasures of insanity. You ever watch like the ID channel, or like America's Most Evil, like the people who are committing the worst crimes? They're not like gritting their teeth and getting through it. By their own admission, they're like, this is what I love to do. I would be sad without this. So with the hell concept, it comes down to nobody can stop you from choosing to want to do evil things. Nobody has control over your mind. However, nobody wants to be the victim of those things, so we're going to try to separate and protect ourselves. And that's exactly what is happening here on earth. And that's Swedenborg's concept of hell. Your punishment is you got to be around people that are like you. You have to feel both sides of what you're putting out there, which doesn't seem too, I see where you're coming from. An important note, God is not angry at people in hell. God is absolutely loving towards everybody and is still trying to work with those people. They don't know it, but he's always trying to arrange things so that they get a little better, stop them from doing this thing, stop them from hurting each other. And the people in heaven aren't like gloating. Like, look at you guys, we have such a better situation here. Swedenborg says that people in heaven would gladly trade places with people in hell if it meant that those people could go to heaven. But nobody can force you out of hell. So, as he says, everyone's thwarted, So you heard that's a little pitch on hell. But I'm going to give you a pitch for heaven, because I think from what I read, it sounds hipper, and this might be a better long-term investment. So what is heaven? Some people say, like, they make jokes like, oh, I don't want to go to heaven because it's boring. Like, it's phrased more cleverly than that, but do you know what I'm talking about? Like, all the interesting people are in hell. Because there's been these ideas put out there of, you got to play the harp for a long time. You have a cloud and a harp. Did you mow the cloud? Yeah, I did. Do you want to go play harp? Yeah, that sounds good. Or people think that, it's eternal church, This being a church, you guys are probably already like, okay. Swedenborg says he actually in the afterlife, he saw people who got to try this out. Like, they had a notion of some kind of heaven that was just one thing, and they got to test drive it for like 2 or 3 days, so they were just like, this is unbelievably boring. And so then they were shown, well, what is heaven? And I think we kind of intuitively have that too, being spirits in a physical body. So heaven, from what I understand, from what I've read from Swedenborg and others, heaven is sort of, picture your life now. But picture that you're living somewhere, the coolest place you could picture living. The climate there is exactly what you dig. The infrastructure of whatever town or city, it's the right size for you. Everything is cool. Like, if you visited there today, you'd come back from that vacation like, wow, that was so cool. I'd love to move there. But you live there. And not only that, you're not just excited about the physical surroundings of the community, you're pumped about what the community is doing. Have you guys ever been part of a community that was trying to accomplish something? Maybe not on like a citywide scale, but you're talking about some kind of action group you were in, or some kind of club where you're excited about the mission. Or, that's a pretty phenomenal feeling. Like, we're accomplishing something here. But your whole community is trying to do that, and you're excited about it. Not only that, you have a really, really good job, and the job is in your wheelhouse. There's certain things that you are good at. And when you're doing it, you're flying. because this is, and there's none, oh, my boss doesn't understand this, oh, I don't like my coworker, oh, the water cooler, because everyone you work with, you completely vibe with them. These are people that I enjoy, and they love the mission like you love the mission. And you guys are, you see people, we like affectionately call them geeks or something, that are so into what they're doing that they just can barely wait to get back to work. And so you have that, not to mention your social structure, your groups that you hang out with. It's like you got to go through your Facebook list or whatever and handpick, these are the people I want to hang out with after dinner. Like these people that you absolutely get along with on a core level, and even down to your dentist. It's a pleasant interaction. The person gets you. Your close relationships, like your marriage, these kinds of things are going well and they're evolving, and you're excited about each of them individually. So that's closer picture to heaven. Can you kind of feel that? And it's not static and meaningless and perfect. There are still struggles, not like what we're dealing with here. But they're positive struggles. Like when you overcome something and it means something and you get something better and it's tangible. That's the kind of stuff that you're dealing with in heaven. Plus, you're young and healthy all the time, right? However, it's way better than that because of the arrangement of heaven. And we're going to take a little look at what the arrangement of heaven is like. So can we play another video? The third one, I think, yeah.
Okay, breathe in. You are the human form. You are the lungs. This is what it looks like when one person breathes. This is what two look like. But when the human race breathes together, it looks like this. We pull in ideas like oxygen, gathering them through inspiration. In our lungs, the molecules are taken by blood cells to move out into the body. But on the grand scale, the red blood cells are the communicators, the authors, the educators, the content producers that harness this idea and carry it into the mighty, rushing flow of information. And then boom. Everyone can get it. Every cell can tap into it and use those ideas to power their processes. Whether they're creating a selective barrier to let helpful things in and keep harmful things out, or maintaining the structures we depend on for support. Or trying to perceive what's really going on with the situation. And all the other billions of actions and projects that build on each other and interact and interconnect in the billions of different ways that every part contributes to the whole on a scale and with a volume that you and I can hardly imagine, let alone fully understand or comprehend. Okay, ready? Exhale. We expel the old ideas, things that are no longer needed or don't belong, or that we've replaced with something better. And it flows. People from all over the world, from every walk of life, get grabbed by passions to affect positive change, to improve the lives of those around them, and they pump it out through networks, through organizations, spreading that passion to others who have the know-how and the means. Those with power build amazing things. And they're fed by people who have an unsatisfiable hunger to learn. How can we make this process quicker, cleaner, better? It's the most amazing machine that exists, but it's a delicate balance. Because a bloodstream that can so elegantly transport good ideas can just as easily transport bad ones. Some units aren't working for the good of the body, are stealing from the body, taking advantage, or taking control. Is cancer anything other than cells that pursue their own growth at any cost and without limits, without any thought about the whole? But we fight back, closing ranks to heal the parts that have been damaged and clean out disease. And then the hands and muscles build so now the eye can see farther than ever. And then the optic nerve makes it so that what the eye sees, everyone sees. lets us see something so far away. And then the heart lets us see what's so close. Okay, breathe in. When the whole body, every part is working together, we call that health. But when everybody's doing their part in the great body, every single person contributing to the whole so that we all benefit, so that everyone's discoveries, patience, lessons learned, hard work, and examples of love lift us all up. When every little part of every cell is feeding from the whole and giving back to the whole, when there's health for the whole human race together as one complex, immense, intimate, interdependent system, we call that heaven.
All right. So heaven, Swedenborg wrote that heaven is in the human form. And that was pictured there. It means that our bodies are an image of heaven. And that doesn't mean like, oh, we're here on the finger, we're going to drive across the wrist, you see up there, you turn right, you get to the head. Or turn left, you get to the head. Right? It doesn't mean in shape, it means functionally, schematically. Our bodies are a picture of heavenly cooperation, aren't they? You think about the way that it's very diverse. There are all kinds of different organs, different parts of the body, but they are working together for a common goal, right? Life and health. And you see everything our body is specialized. The hands know what they need to do to be hands, you know? The teeth know what they need to do to be teeth. The feet know what they need to do to be feet. And they're all working together, and they're contributing together, and that is the vibe of heaven. And that's actually how it works. You go in, and you go into your specialty, and you're contributing to, you know, if you're a little part of the eye, Swedenborg talks about, is made up of people who love to gain knowledge. You know, because isn't that what the eye is doing for our body, right? It's looking out, and it's achieving, it's looking out, and it's getting information. It's bringing it back into the body. So you are there, and you're contributing to the eye, you're contributing to the whole body, because once you know, the whole body can use it and work with it. And that is heaven. Heaven, and it's kind of cool. We're walking around wearing heaven, you know? That there is this image of community and collaboration and also interdependence, right? None of these parts can survive on their own. They all need each other to thrive, and that is a joy of heaven, is that what parts of your body are competing with each other? You know? Which part is trying to be better than the other? Which is trying to say, I don't need the rest of you? Nothing. It's a joyous collaboration, interdependence, and it's a system of love. And that this is the way that heaven is. Swedenborg wrote that we may gather the magnitude of heaven's pleasure simply from the fact that for everyone there, it is delightful to share their pleasure and bliss with someone else. And since everyone in heaven is like this, we can see how immense heaven's pleasure is. For there in heaven is a sharing by everyone with each individual, and by each individual with everyone. Like every cell in the body is taking in oxygen from the lungs, it's putting out useful things. Everyone together. So, and you think about the more and more people that get into the system, the happier and happier it can be. So the band can start coming out. We're going to get a song ready, but I want to point out that since we're citizens of both these worlds, I'm not just talking about something that affects us after we die. It's here and now. Like you're getting affected by your physical senses, but we also get affected by our spirits. Thoughts and feelings, those are in the spirit, and those are being affected by the communities we're in and the company that we're keeping in the other world. And the message is that we can be navigating the spiritual world, because you say we have a spirit, but it's not just hanging out. It's somewhere. You know, it's somewhere, and it's interacting with that. You know how we get internal weather? You know, like some days are just gray and some are beautiful. Okay, that there's something to that. And that by the way that by the kinds of things that we're doing, we can choose. Where do we want to move to? There's that, you know, I talked about the pitch, right? Hell is given a pitch, heaven is given a pitch. We're getting that pitch all the time, every day. And isn't there like, come on, just get the last word in. That's gonna improve your life, and it's gonna improve their life because they'll know their place. You know, come on, get mad at your dog. I had to just like think. I have never experienced those kinds of things, but I thought maybe you guys would have. You're getting that pitch all the time, so we can navigate and we can move because it's all here and now. And to close, I want to say that I went through and was making this huge list of all these details of Swedenborg's description of the afterlife that I wanted to include, and I couldn't include any of them because just to get the basics takes so long. So there's a lot out there, and you guys can check it out. I'll close with this quote. It says, "The spiritual world is right where we are, not distance from us in the least. In short, as far as the deeper levels of our minds are concerned, we are already in that world, surrounded by angels and spirits there."